because it's
No, fair enough.
when you only got $1 million,
No, yeah,
and you loan
that's
everybody
true.
a $100,000, that's 10 loans, and until they pay that back, you don't have money to give back out. I mean, it supports itself, and the interest adds to it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winnebago County Board meeting. Tonight is Thursday, May 25th, 2023. Tonight, we're going to have a special guest doing the invocation, Pastor Calvin Culpepper from Court Street United Methodist Church. If you want to come forward, Pastor, everybody stand, please.
Almighty God, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. I pray for this council and for the members one by one, and for the meeting that they will hold tonight. Give the council members wisdom and guidance as they deliberate on the items before them. And may every decision be righteous in your sight, for our benefit and for your glory. Help us engage in meaningful discussion and allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of the community we serve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Mr. Thompson, are there any agenda announcements this evening?
Just one, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Under the zoning committee report, items 2 and 3 have been removed from the agenda.
Items 2 and 3 under the zoning committee have been removed from the agenda.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Clerk Gummo, can you please call the roll?
Certainly, thank you, Chairman. We will start this evening with Mr. McDonald. Present. Mr. Neighbors. Mr. Penny. Here. Mr. Salgado.
Present.
Mr. Scroll. Here. Mr. Sweeney. Here. Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Thompson. Here. Mr. Webster. Here. Mr. Arena. Mr. Booker. Mr. Butita. Mrs. Crosby. Here. Ms. Fellers.
Present.
Mrs. Gorel. Mr. Guevara. Present. Ms. Hansard. Here. Mr. Hoffman. Present. Mr. Lindmark. Present. Mr. McCarthy. Present. Thank you all. Mr. Chairman, that is 18 board members present, 2 board members absent.
Very good. We do have a quorum this evening. Okay, before we proceed, it has been suggested to me by Board Member Thompson and other board members that in recognition of the Memorial Day, this coming Monday, we take a moment of silence to honor and remember the brave men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice while serving in our armed forces. May their courage and sacrifice always be remembered and appreciated. Please stand. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to number 5 on our agenda, the awards presentations, public hearing, and public participation. There are no awards this evening, but we do have a presentation. This is for the annual overview of the revolving loan program presented by Mr. John Phelps and Director Dornbush. Please come forward.
Good evening. I'm John Phelps. I'm the Executive Director of the Rockford Local Development Corporation. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. All right, thank you. I'm here to talk about the revolving loan fund we manage for the county, but it's been like 4 years since I've been here, and many of you maybe don't even know who we are, so I thought I'd discuss that a little bit. Who is RLDC? We're a private not-for-profit economic development agency. We were founded in 1979, and our primary activity is small business lending, what we call gap financing. You go to a bank, you want to buy a building, it's $1 million. The bank says, yeah, we'll lend you $700,000, and you say, well, I don't really have $300,000 in the mattress. What do I do? Hopefully they send you to us. We try and fill the gap so you can buy your building, hire more people, and contribute to a healthy economy. We currently have about 455 loans outstanding, about $67.5 million. And because we're providing just a portion of the funds, our projects total about $265 million. And we've impacted about 3,700 jobs just in our existing portfolio. Our programs, as I mentioned, were a source of gap financing. We are a statewide lender under the SBA 504 program. This is a specialized bond program through the U.S. Small Business Administration that provides long-term fixed-rate loans for small businesses. It's not something you can get from a bank. And in today's market, we're actually, even though we're the second mortgage, longer-term fixed-rate funding, we're quite a bit cheaper than bank funding today. And I'm proud to announce we got a loan approved today for a trucking company in the Chicago suburbs. We manage 7 local revolving loan funds, and most of these are very territorial. So we manage the counties. We can only lend in Winnebago County. We manage the cities. We have a multi-bank community development corporation I'll talk about, and then we have 4 of our own. We recently started a community development financial agency I'll talk a little bit about, and we've been a leader in urban redevelopment projects. We developed a South Main grocery store that is now owned by La Chiquita. We own the Turner Police police station for the city. We were their conduit to access historic tax credits, and we continue to own that. We were the developer for the downtown Rockford Conference Center that is attached to the Embassy Suites Hotel. We manage the Keith Creek Flood Mitigation Program, which is about a 3-4 year program where the city had to relocate about 140 property owners after 2 100-year floods in the Keith Creek area south of Swedish American Hospital. And we've managed multiple brownfields remediation projects for the city, including the old Amrak Embassy Suites, the Sports Factory, Barbara Coleman, and a few others. Our RLF, revolving loan fund, simply means we lend you the money, you pay it back, and we lend it back out. They're ideal for smaller loans. Our maximum is generally about $200,000. We try not to be more than 30% of the project cost, unless we're doing micro lending where we're the only lender. Loans up to about $100,000. Banks simply really don't like doing those. It's a lot of work. They don't make much money, and so we're kind of the lender by default. They're typically used for subordinate financing, meaning we're the second lien, we're the second mortgage. They're very flexible. We can do real estate, equipment, or working capital. Our rates are project dependent. They're generally around the bank rate, usually a little bit higher because we're taking more risk, and we have very nominal processing fees. Our loan criteria is we favor manufacturing. That's what Rockford's known for. It creates a lot of jobs, generally better paying jobs and services. We are attracted to disadvantaged borrowers and distressed areas in the community where banks are less willing to lend. We try and not lend more than $50,000 per job to be created, and we're trying to leverage private capital. In our portfolios, we have leveraged anywhere from $5 to $10 of private dollars for every dollar we have lent. And we want them to be sustainable, which means we want these programs to be here long after I'm here and for future generations. So they need to be profitable, we need to get repaid, and we work very hard to make sure that occurs. Our underwriting process, same with your money. We learn about the business, interview the client, spend a lot of time learning about their product and service, their management, the marketing, competition, and so forth. We will describe what the project is, the sources and the uses of funds. We evaluate their financial condition, analyze the balance sheet, their debt that they have, compare it to industry standards. We analyze the income statement, the revenue growth. Are they declining, increasing? What's happening to their profit margins? And compare those to industry standards. We analyze their debt service capacity. How much debt do they have? What's their capacity to repay that existing debt and the new debt? And then we analyze the collateral and their creditworthiness. We try and approve our loans in less than 30 days. Our project default rates, our goal is to be under 2% a year. With your loan fund, it's, the balance is about $1.2 million. And if at $1.2 million at 6%, we would generate $72,000 a year of income. Our management fee averages about 1.5%. If we factor in a loan loss reserve of 2%, we should have income every year of about $30,000 a year, which makes it sustainable. It will grow each year and be there for future generations. In your current portfolio, we have 16 loans outstanding. As I said, the balance outstanding is $1.2 million. The average loan size is about $121,000. Before we took it over, the average loan size was about $450,000. Since we've taken it over, it's about $67,000. The average interest rate today is 4.7%. There is a very low interest rate to Experity. I understand it's on the agenda tonight to renew that loan at a higher rate. If that's approved, the average rate in the portfolio would be 6.1%, which gets back to that notion of if we can generate about 6%, we ought to be able to generate about $70,000 a year of income. Before we took over, the average rate was 2.5%. Since then, it's 6.02. Again, that's what makes it sustainable. If we can generate enough income, it will be there for future generations. We view these as access to capital, not low interest loans necessarily, although I would argue they are pretty low interest because they're high risk loans generally. Our defaults in your portfolio are 1.84%. We had 2 business failures. We have one that's in deferment. She is paying us, but intermittently. She was hit hard by COVID, still in business, but it's difficult for her to make the regularly scheduled payments. This is kind of hard to see. I apologize for that, but I did want to track the history. As you can see, the fund balance has grown pretty much every year. We had a loss in 2020 because we recognized all the losses in those 3 loans that I mentioned. 2 of those, candidly, the chances of recovery are very small. They're both around high teens, 15, 18,000. The third one, we are still servicing. She is making payments. And so although we reserved the full amount of the loan, she is making payments. But otherwise, as you can see, the loan fund's been profitable every year and continues to grow. I do want to talk about our affordable housing program. A few years ago, we came to the county and requested a loan. We had started a pilot program under our multi-bank community development corporation. What that means is we have 9 banks that own this corporation, and they've pooled together. Today, it's about $4 million for us to manage. And we can make loans really anywhere in northern Illinois. It's primarily Winnebago and Boone County. And it was 2015, and Rockford had one of the highest foreclosure rates in the country. We were challenged with what to do about that. And so I came up with a plan where we would finance small business people, because that's what we do, who buy foreclosed abandoned homes, fix them up, and flip them, hopefully to homeowners. We will finance up to $100,000 at 100%. And it worked out really well. We only had $100,000 to work with, so we were doing 1 or 2 a year kind of thing, but it was very successful. So a few years later, we recapitalized that CDC. It's called Northern Illinois Community Development Corporation. And we came to the city and the county and we said, if you will lend us $200,000 each, we will pledge $1 million for this housing program. And you agreed, and we've paid back about half of your money to date. And it was very successful. And it was so successful, we've made now 70 loans out of that loan fund, totaling almost $5.2 million. And it was so successful, we decided to establish what's called a Community Development Financial Institution. There are none in this area other than us. We were recently certified by the U.S. Department of Treasury. And the whole focus of that entity is to expand this program. It now has $3.5 million, and it's only been in business for about a year. It has done 24 loans for $1.5 million. We actually closed 6 this week in that program. And it's profitable in its very first year. So between these two programs, we have lent about $7 million on 98 homes, and we have no losses, not a penny to date. And we've impacted almost 100 homes in the county and got them back on the tax rolls, improved their values, and made them quality housing for our residents. And I thank you very much for your support.
Director, did you want
That's
to
it.
say a few? Thank you, John.
For me.
Appreciate that.
I won't be long. So to piggyback on John's, the purpose of the loans is to create capital available for projects that create and retain jobs, minimizing the risk spread among the lenders that are involved. The loans for the revolving loan fund will go to non-for-profit or for-profit. Some of our other programs, we stick to non-for-profit organizations. If the loan were to default, there's no liability to the county. It would simply, the county wouldn't have to pay back to the revolving loan fund if there is. In that scenario, the funds would just simply be reduced by the loan amount that was defaulted on, and that would decrease the overall balance. However, John is very good at structuring the loans when they're proposed to cover the liability, potential liability loss. The funds originated from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, commonly referred to as HUD. They then passed through the Illinois Department of Commerce and Community Affairs, DECA, which is now turned into the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, DCEO, before landing at the county in the early 90s. There's no county funds in the program. It's self-sustaining. And the interest charged for the loans grows the account, which also covers the management costs to operate the program. It's now been about 6.5 years, or over 6.5 years, since the county got this letter from DCEO, which relinquished the required restrictions on how the funds can be used by the county. With the loosening of these regulations, the loan opportunities are more flexible than they previously were. They can now be utilized within municipalities within the county of Winnebago and have similar programs. Before, you had to keep them separate. But they also can be pooled together with other projects that might not have been able to occur otherwise. Here's the major timeline for the county's revolving loan fund and its relationship with RLDC managing it. It initiated back in November 25th of 2014. RLDC and the county entered into a partnership. RLDC does the administering of the program for the county, and they handle all the vetting of the process and the management of the loans. Even though they do all the heavy lifting, we still have to have county board approval for each loan to execute it at the end of the day. In January 28th of 2016, the county and RLDC did an update to the partnership agreement, pretty minor, but just clarifying some of the original agreement. In 2016, October 11th, The county received a letter from from DCEO relinquishing the tight restrictions of the program, which was pointed to in the previous slide. And then the dates to the right just represent the times that we presented to the county board, discussing the program and reviewing it. And we're here before you tonight to just keep you informed in the status and how it's proceeding. Overall, the partnership with RLDC has been wonderful. It's been very successful. From the county's revolving loan fund, in less than 8 years, RLDC's submitted and the county board has approved processing 28 different loans, which is approximately $2.11 million of community investment, including the one that's before you tonight. The program has created an estimated 187 full-time equivalent positions since 2015. And the bottom chart actually represents the number of county loans that were allocated to county board districts at the time that they were issued. And that's it. If you have any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for coming to present. Mr. Dornbush, obviously, is chairman of the Economic Development Committee. I get to talk to you all the time and always value your input and opinion on these matters. And Mr. Phelps, thank you for coming tonight and sharing this. I asked that the presentation be given because I thought it would be very insightful and educational, and I know it was for me, so appreciate that. And just wanted to say that the committee relies very heavily on your advice and recommendations, and your reputation for fine financial acumen certainly precedes you in this presentation. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Any other board's comments or questions? Mr. Booker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, I'd like to echo, thank you for bringing this valuable information to us. I had spoken with Cliff a month or two ago on clarification of a loan that was completed for a business in Rockford. So this was very educational for me, and thank you. It's good to see the success that's going on too.
Thank you.
At the beginning of your presentation, you had made mention that you had just closed on a loan for a trucking company out of the Chicago suburbs.
So that's our SBA program. We are required by SBA to serve the state. And probably 90% of our activity is in the Rockford area. But we have relationship with lenders, and we were introduced to this trucking company. And we earn fees off that. That's what makes us sustainable. We get no public money. We have contracts with the county, the city, and others, but nobody writes us checks. We earn our money and we're profitable, and part of that is making SBA loans around the state. So.
Good, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gorel?
Yeah, and I also want to thank you. I know you've been around for some time, and well, we both are. So, but you've always done a very good and honest job with this. You've been a real asset to our whole community, and I have sent people to you many times, and and then they go back to you again when they expand. So you've done a wonderful service that no one knows about. And our board members should really be aware of that, because the fact they too are going to have people ask them where they can get some money to help their business along, and they need to know that we do have you to help them through. If you can't, you can't, but if you can, you do. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gorel. Any other questions, comments? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Thank you, Director. All right, moving forward, there are no public hearings and no public participation this evening. So we'll move on to approval of minutes. May I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 27th, 2023, and layover of the May 11th, 2023 minutes. Motion by Mr. Penny, second by Mr. Booker. Is there any discussion on the approval and layover of those minutes? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to that motion to approve and layover? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Number 7 is the consent agenda. That includes the raffle report and the auditor's report. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Penny. Very good. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, are there any board members opposed to approving the consent agenda? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Number 8 are the appointments. Per county board rules, board chairman appointments require a 30-day layover unless there is a suspension of the rule. Tonight, placing up for the Washington Park Light District, the annual compensation is $300 annually. First name, Bernice E. Russell. That is a reappointment for a 3-year term. Next is Flora Williams. That is also a reappointment for a 3-year term. And lastly, Holly Nash is also a reappointment for a 3-year term. Ms. Crosby.
I move to suspend the rules because these are reappointments.
We have a motion to suspend by Ms. Crosby, second by Mr. Sweeney. All in favor of the suspension, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. The rules are suspended.
I move that we approve all 3 candidates for the Washington Park Light District.
Motion by Ms. Crosby to approve the 3 candidates this evening, and second by Mr. Sweeney. Is there any discussion on these 3 appointments?
You got to raise it higher.
Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to these appointments? Very good, thank you. Please cast a yes for everybody. So this Washington Park Light District came up recently. I was not aware of it, nor anybody was really aware of it. So, Mr. Dornbush, thank you for your work on that. Came to our attention by an attorney that this Washington Park Light District was almost a year away from being dissolved, and they just never took any action on anything, and now it's back and reinstated. So, thank you. All right, moving forward here, number 9 is the reports of standing committees. The first is the Finance Committee. Mr. Salgado.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee has 3 items tonight. The first one's a resolution authorizing settlement claim against the County of Winnebago entitled David Sates versus Winnebago County, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Salgado, second by Mr. Hoffman. Is there any discussion on this resolution?
Just for the record, the dollar amount's $35,258.76.
Very good. Any further discussion on this resolution? Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is ordinance for budget amendment to establish Sheriff E-Citation Fund. This is to be laid over, but I'd like to move and suspend the rules.
Move to suspend by Mr. Salgado, second by Mr. Booker. Is there any opposition to the suspension? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. It's approved. The rules are suspended. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Therefore, I move to approve ordinance for a budget amendment to establish Sheriff E-Citation Fund.
Very good. Moved by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Crosby. Is there any discussion on this ordinance? Okay, hearing none. Are there any board members opposed to approval of this ordinance? Very good. Please cast yes for all members present. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our final resolution is a resolution to expedite the payment of claims for Winnebago County, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion? Mr. Salgado?
No.
Any board member discussion? Very good. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Got one. Mr. McDonald is in opposition. Please cast a yes for the remaining board members. Mr. Salgado.
And that concludes the finance report.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado.
Thank you.
Zoning Committee, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. Your zoning committee has 3 items on the agenda. As Administrator mentioned earlier, we've scratched 2 of them. So anyways, the first item on the agenda, this is in for first reading to be laid over, Z0323. It's a map amendment. Okay, so that's in for the first reading. That came from the Zoning Board of Appeals that failed there. and the recommendation from the zoning committee was a denial. Moving on, those are both in first reading. Moving on, the item which is marked number 4 is a resolution supporting agriculture within the county of Winnebago, Illinois. And with that, I would move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Webster, second by Mr. Guevara. Any discussion, Mr. Webster?
Yeah, first of all, I want to mention that we have a couple of Farm Bureau members here. We have Secretary Jessica Boobert.
Please stand.
Stand, please. And then we also have the business manager for the Farm Bureau, Anne Marie Kane.
Welcome.
And I'd like to personally thank both of them. And this resolution is acknowledging the importance of agriculture in Winnebago County. Without agriculture, we wouldn't even have Winnebago County. So I would move to approve that resolution.
Moved by Mr. Webster, second by Mr. Guevara. Is there any board member discussion on this resolution? All right, hearing none. Are there any board members opposed to the resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Thank you, Mr. Webster.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I personally appreciate that. I would like to ask how long Farm Bureau's been in business in Winnebago County.
We were formed in 1920.
Right? Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you. Longer than I've been around. And finally, we have a resolution authorizing the chairman of the county board to execute an intergovernmental cooperation agreement for building inspection by and between the county of Winnebago and the village of Cherry Valley, and I would move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Webster, second by Speaker McCarthy. Is there any discussion? None? Any board member discussion? Good. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Okay, please cast yes for all members present. Mr. Webster.
Okay, thanks. That's all we have for our report this evening. The Zoning Board of Appeals scheduled for a meeting Wednesday, August 9th, and we will follow up with the meeting, tentatively speaking, for Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. All right, moving on to Economic Development Committee. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Economic Development Committee has one resolution tonight, and that is a resolution granting authority to the Winnebago County Board Chairman to execute the documents necessary to extend an existing loan for $419,387 from the revolving loan fund to Xperity, and I so move for its adoption.
Moved by Mr. Sweeney, second by Mr. Guevara. Any discussion, Mr. Sweeney?
Not for me.
Board member discussion on this resolution? Very good. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Good. Please cast yes for all members present. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That does conclude our report. I would like to have an Economic Development Committee meeting next week. I just don't know exactly when yet, but I'll be in touch with the committee members to see what works for everybody.
Very good, Mr. Sweeney. Thank you. Okay, moving on, Operation Administrative Committee, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some new information has come to light on this resolution, so I'd motion to send it back to committee.
We got a motion to send back the resolution to approve the addition of HVAC control to air handlers and replacing thermostats for River Bluff Nursing Home using CIP 2023 funds, and we have a second by Mr. Guevara and Mr. Lindmark. Is there any discussion on sending this item back to committee? Ms. Gorel.
Yes, why? Because you've had new information? What kind of information?
More bids.
More bids? Good, okay.
So, more bids were presented, so that's why it's going back to committee. Yes, Mr. Salgado.
Yeah, so just point of clarification, I know that it was sole source, so the question is, how did the new bids come into play? I'd like a little bit more information on that.
Mr. McDonald?
Sure, I'd be happy to address that. We haven't received new bids. We need to receive more bids. We've got some information stating that this isn't necessarily a sole source subject, so I want to make sure we're getting the best value.
So I just want to make sure that we're following process, right? And so I don't know, Miss Ann Johns, have you had conversations with, you know, Mr. McDonald and so forth, just to coincide with, you know, the rationale on sole source versus additional bids?
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Johns?
Yes, the question came up from a board member this week regarding the justification for this to be sole sourced, and so there was a question about that, and so my suggestion to the board member was to, you know, if there's a question on why the project is slated for sole source, then it should be referred back to the committee for more discussion on that reason alone. If the committee or the county board questions whether a project should be sole sourced, that needs to be flushed out in committee. And we thought it had been flushed out in the committee, but this question came up after our committee met. So.
And I do appreciate that explanation, because the simple fact that we're just sending it back to committee without that information just kind of goes against what we voted on at committee level. So thank you for the clarification.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Salgado. Any other discussion on this, sending back this resolution to the committee? Are there any board members opposed to that approval? Very good. Please cast yes for all members present. Mr. McDonald. That concludes our report. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Move on to Public Works Committee. Mr. Tassoni.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Public Works Committee brings forth, I believe, 6 resolutions this evening. I'll read them and speak to them as necessary. The first item is Resolution 23-017, and it's a resolution amending a local agency resolution of intent to retire general obligation bonds with motor fuel tax funds for improvements on county highways, and I would so move that item.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Tassoni, discussion?
Yeah, this is just some clarification here. This was, we did some road projects out on Baxter and the Kishwaukee Road about 3 years ago. There was bonds sold to do those projects, and it was later determined by the state that one of those, upwards of $1 million, was not a bondable project. So basically, just in simple terms, County Highway is going to make a line item transfer out of their funds and use the bond monies for a best road out by Lake Somerset for a project that's on the books for this year. It's just putting money in a different line item. Basically, that's what it comes down to.
Very good. Board member discussion on this resolution? Are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is 23-018, and it's a resolution authorizing the award of bid for annual concrete pavement patching. I would so move that item.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni. Second by Mr. Sweeney. Any discussion?
Just particularly, Mr. Chairman, this is in District 6, 7, and 11. It's annual concrete patching generally throughout the county.
Very good. Any further board member discussion? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is 23-019. It's a resolution authorizing an agreement with Willett Hoffman and Associates, Inc. to provide construction engineering services for Guilford Road Culvert in Rockford Township. I would so move that item.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is just pass-through funds the county administers for the various townships. This just happens to be one of those, no cost to the county.
Very good. Any further discussion on this resolution? Very good. Are there board members in opposition to this resolution? Very good. Please cast yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is 23-020, and it's a resolution authorizing the award of bid for the second 2023 county general letting. I would move that item.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni. Is there a second? Mr. Thompson seconds that motion. Mr. Tassoni.
This was, we generally do this each year. It had been done in a previous month or two ago. This was just some additional items that were needed at a cost of $14,000 and some change.
Very good. Board member discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. Next item is 23-021. It's a resolution authorizing placing orders for the purchase of a plow and dump truck chassis. And I would so move.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Webster. Discussion, Mr. Tassoni?
Thank you, Chairman. Just for some of you, like I say, if you're not on the Public Works Committee, or if you're not familiar with purchasing equipment and the vehicles, post-COVID and during COVID, there's been a shortage. I'm sure we've all heard of the chip shortage and how hard it is to get a vehicle. These monies that were allocated is upwards of, for 6 cabin chassis trucks. They're approximately $150,000 apiece. And by doing this, it just gets us on a list to have these trucks manufactured, and they're approximately 1 to 3 years out. So this just gets us on that list so that we may get them in 1 to 3 years. That's how much of the shortage is.
Very good. Any board member discussion on this resolution? Mr. Webster.
We had discussed this prior about the cost, $866,000. It seemed like a huge amount, just for half a dozen trucks, and it's just the cab and chassis, the bare frame. And so you have to at least double that amount by the time we get the dump body on there and the salt spreaders and all that. And my point is, it's going to take 1 to 3 years, as Mr. Tassoni's pointed out. And my point on this is this just underscores the reason why we need a garage to put these trucks in when we get them, okay? We'll have an investment of $866, almost $1 million just for the trucks alone. And to protect them, we need some place to park them indoors. If you paid $150,000 for your car, I'm pretty sure you'd have a garage to put it in. And if you had $866,000 for your whole family, I'm real sure you'd have a garage to put them in. So I want to keep that in mind when we're talking budgets and how we spread our money out. There's a dire need for protecting our investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Board member discussion? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our final resolution here, 23-022, is a resolution authorizing the award of bid for Spring Creek Roads resurfacing project, and I would so move that item.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Limark. Is there any discussion?
Just once again, this is for Rockford Township resurfacing, and it's pass-through funds the county administers.
Very good. Any further board member discussion? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our report.
Very good. Thank you. Next up, Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, Mr. Brad Limark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety and Judiciary Committee has 3 resolutions tonight. The first one is a resolution authorizing the County Board Chairman to amend the contract for the telecommunication services for inmates of the Winnebago County Jail, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Limark. Is there a second? Mr. Booker. Any discussion, Mr. Limark?
None by me.
Board member discussion. Hearing none. Are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Limark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our second resolution is authorizing execution of a First Amendment to the ARP sub-recipient agreement by and between the County of Winnebago, Illinois, and Marshmallows Hope, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Limark, second by Speaker McCarthy. Is there any discussion, Mr. Limark?
Not by me, thank you.
Board member discussion. Very good. Are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Limark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our final resolution is to extend the project's Safe Neighborhoods Agreement, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Lindmark. Is there a second by Mr. Webster? Discussion, Mr. Lindmark?
No, sir, Chairman.
Board member discussion. Very good. Are there any board members opposed to the approval of this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Lindmark.
This concludes our report, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lindmark. We'll move on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business in front of the board this evening? None? Okay. New business. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in regards to, it was a board meeting or two ago, I think it was last board meeting, possibly the one before, when a resolution came through regarding our budget policy. And since then, I made it known at the Finance Committee that I could not support the language that was in that budget policy and wanted some more discussion. It was laid over previously. And currently, myself, along with some of my colleagues, we're working on a document that we would like to have entertained by the Finance Committee, and some of our thoughts as far as how we would like allocation of the casino tax revenues, the gaming and the cannabis revenues, and in addition, the opioid settlement monies, how they should be distributed. So look forward to that document coming, and it'll be handed out to the appropriate bodies. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Tassoni. Any other new business in front of the board this evening? Very good. Announcements and communications. Clerk Gumau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The items listed below were received as correspondence.
Very good. Announcement, communications from board members. Mr. Webster. Moved by Mr. Webster, second by Mr. Thompson. Are there any opposition to leaving this evening? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.